Hey, what's going on, everybody? It is Undead, back again with the third episode of my How to Dominate series, where I give you tips, tricks, and general strategies to help you succeed and master all the heroes and villains in Star Wars Battlefront 2. Really quick, I just wanted to give a huge shout out and thank you guys for your patience while waiting for this episode. With final exams ending and the beginning of winter break, I took a little bit of time just to chill and relax for a little bit, but this episode is going to be entirely dedicated to my favorite hero in the game, Darth Vader. Now, I was originally disappointed with how different he played to his counterpart in Battlefront 2015, but since then I've been playing and practicing with him more and more than any other hero in the game at this point, and now I can definitely say that Vader is the most fun I've had in the game by far. And now let's discuss why. My initial impressions of Vader the first time I played him compared to now have essentially done a complete 180. Vader is an absolute powerhouse and is a complete nightmare in the right hands. His incredibly tanky 900 starting health and the ability to regen 300 of that at any time means he can be very aggressive and be constantly putting pressure on the front lines and objectives in Galactic Assault, or he can be the one trading blows for your team in Heroes vs. Villains. His abilities are all very powerful, and then they all have their own distinct purposes, but must be used appropriately. His first ability is his Saber throw, where Vader hurls his lightsaber in a straight line, boomerang style, inflicting a large amount of damage to each unit hit when the saber is thrown, and on the return trip back to Vader. His second ability is called Focused Rage, which makes Vader not drain any stamina for a brief window of time, allowing Vader to block or swing indefinitely while the ability is active. Finally, we have Vader's iconic Force Choke ability, which has received massive changes since Battlefront 2015 and is arguably the hardest ability of Vader's to master. With this ability, Vader sweeps enemies off their feet, locking himself and the targeted enemies in a very long animation, and inflicts damage by mashing the left mouse button or the right trigger repeatedly. With all these abilities in mind, Vader has a great mix and possible combos to tackle every situation that you find yourself in. Before we talk strategy, let's go ahead and talk about some star cards you might want to consider when playing as Vader. Now, without question, there is one mandatory card that you have to run when you play as Vader. You're pretty much not allowed to not have this card. It's called Dark Lord and gives Vader the ability to regenerate his health back on every single kill you get. Now, you only get 20 health back per enemy trooper that you kill, which may not seem like a lot, but do remember that Vader slays regular troopers in his sleep, so it happens a lot. And not to mention, if you kill a hero, you get a monstrous 100 health back. That is huge. So go ahead and do yourself a favor and go ahead and equip that card. Now, the next two cards are a bit of personal preference as usual, but in terms of Galactic Assault, I'd strongly recommend There Is No Escape, because that extra 50% saber distance is absolutely insane, and it really feels like the lightsaber can get thrown for miles. It really comes in handy in pretty much every single circumstance in Galactic Assault. Finally, we have my last recommendation, which is Furious Resilience, which gives Vader up to a 25% damage reduction while using his Focused Rage ability. In terms of Galactic Assault, I don't find his default Focused Rage ability too crazy, so this gives it a whole new layer of utility, and the 25% damage reduction is really noticeable in my opinion, and will help you get into or out of situations with a lot more health than you would otherwise. If you mainly focus on heroes versus villains though, and play that mode all the time, I'd probably recommend focusing on a Force Choke heavy build with these 2 star cards that increase the damage of the Force Choke, as well as the time it takes for the enemy to break free from your grasp. Similar to Kylo and Palpatine, Vader is an excellent spearhead to an assault on an objective and a complete wall to face up against when used on defense. His abilities are flexible and will allow you to excel in pretty much any situation you find yourself in. In Galactic Assault, large groups of enemies are nothing to be too concerned of, especially if you run the star card build I suggested earlier. Now, the strategy you're going to want to follow is to start off assaulting objectives by poking with a saber throw down corridors or hallways if possible, as this will quickly eliminate any non-buffed assault, officer, or specialist players instantly. After you're done poking the enemy and ready to push, pop your Focused Rage to give yourself some damage resistance and rush in with your team. Prioritize force choking any Wookiees or heroes from a safe position that are foolish enough to challenge you. In Heroes vs. Villains, Vader is the executioner of the team. His Focused Rage allows Vader to deal a truckload of damage to enemy heroes as you constantly attack them without penalty, and his Saber Throw annoys the shit out of the enemy team and painfully lets them know that you're always there, lurking. And his Force Choke is a perfect combo for fellow villains, as it's pretty much a guaranteed kill every time. Now, regardless of game mode though, one thing you have to master in order to be a great Vader player is his movement. You know, by default, he's a very slow and lumbering character, and because of this, mastery of his sidestep using Alt on the PC or B in circle buttons on consoles cannot be overstated. No matter how goofy it looks to see Vader sliding around so fast, you'll love how it saves your ass from Rey's Mind Trick, Angry Wookiee Warriors, snipers, grenades, supercharged sentry, you name it.
Oh my god. Look, he has literally all blue cards on literally every one of his fucking heroes. Just runs away.
I'm gonna kill him in just a second.
Now, one thing that should scare the hell out of you, though, is the LNAT on Kashyyyk and on the second phase of Kamino especially. That place is a death trap. Now, Vader's slow nature and his meter-long red glow stick make him such an easy target for an LAT gunner with any brains that if you find yourself on the receiving end of that silent but deadly green laser, man, you better say goodbye to all your health, and you better keep sidestepping like you're role-playing Michael Jackson in Thriller. With all that general strategy out of the way, let's go ahead and take it to the do's and don'ts of each of Vader's abilities. First up is Vader's only ranged ability, and one of the most important ones he has when playing Galactic Assault, his lightsaber throw. Now, coming from Battlefront 2015, I was initially disappointed that the ability no longer tracked itself to a target automatically, but given the trade-off that it can now damage or kill several enemies at once, I've honestly grown to love it. It's an amazing ability that takes a little bit of practice, but ultimately rewards a player for mastering how to throw it for maximum effect. So you better break out that protractor and begin finding the best angles to throw the saber, because with the incredibly short cooldown of 6 seconds, you'll be throwing out more red glow sticks than an air cannon at a rave. You do want to use saber throw as a way to instantly kill any assault officer or specialist who's giving you trouble from a moderate distance away. You do want to use saber throw as a way to harass enemy heroes from a safe distance before closing the gap. And pretty much you do want to use this ability as much as possible, honestly. Like I mentioned, its cooldown is incredibly short, and there's really nothing to lose. It's like fishing. Just keep throwing it at an enemy, and sometimes you'll hook a guy, sometimes you won't. Either way, it's going to be back in 6 seconds. But you don't want to use saber throw on enemies that are hiding in a squad shield unless you are inside the squad shield with them. But then again, you can just slash them outright. Either way, I find it a little weird that the saber throw can't go through the squad shields anymore, but just a little thing to keep in mind. Vader's second ability, Focus Rage, is another pretty crucial part of Vader's kit. Now, let me start off by saying I was really a bit confused at first, because when the hero video started to release before Battlefront 2 launched, the Battlefront 2 website described this ability as a way for Vader to, quote, deal more damage out, while also being able to absorb more damage. Now, quite frankly, that's not how the ability works. By default, it doesn't work like that way at all. By default, the only difference I have noticed is when using Focus Rage, the stamina drain is gone. You no longer drain any stamina. So if you want the damage resistance, though, you have to use the Furious Resilience card that I mentioned earlier. Now, I could be completely wrong about that. In that case, feel free to correct me. Honestly, just, no big deal. But I just wanted to point out something that I wanted to think about. Now, you do want to use Focus Rage when you're about to assault an objective or push a group of enemies, as this will allow you to block indefinitely all incoming blaster fire and swing as much as you need to take all those enemies down. You do want to use Focus Rage if an enemy hero tries to fight you, as this will give you plenty of time to deflect incoming attacks and then strike them down easily while taking minimal damage. Now, you don't want to use Focus Rage when running in empty space, such as from spawn or anything like that, because you don't want to waste the ability. That's pretty self-explanatory. But the biggest thing I can say with Focus Rage is, honestly, there really isn't any bad time to use it. There's just better times to use it, if that makes sense. The biggest thing I could just say is probably just try and prioritize using Focus Rage during pushes that will advance your team and that will make your team have mountains of progress. Finally, we have Vader's third and most important ability, his Force Choke. Now, I have a lot to say about this ability because when used incorrectly, it will cause you to get completely liquidated and return you right back to the spawn screen. It is the single most important ability you need to master when playing Vader. Now, the most important thing you need to ask yourself mentally when you're about to pop this ability is, are there any enemies around your target that won't get affected by your Force Choke? I.e. at the back of the hallway, to the sides of the target, behind you, because those people out of range of your grasp will melt you during the animation time. Now, with that said, and this is the most important takeaway of the entire video, is that you can toggle the Force Choke ability. If you pop your Force Choke on an enemy, and then out of the corner of your eye, you see a Wookiee, or a supercharged sentry, or a Vanguard dude rushing you, just hit the Force Choke ability again, and Vader will stop the animation, drop your target instantly, and you'll be able to sidestep to safety. You do want to Force Choke if you can safely choke all of the enemies in front of you, because remember, if you leave even one guy free and unaffected by that Force Choke, he's just going to turn around and melt all your health down while you do the animation. You do want to Force Choke any enemy hero during combat, because this will either be your guaranteed kill if you have teammates around, or at the very least will get rid of a huge section of their health. You do want to Force Choke Wookiees that are alone, because Wookiees are one of the biggest threats to any hero, and the Force Choke stops them dead in their tracks. Now, do keep in mind, though, that the Wookiee has a lot more health than a standard trooper, so in that case, they're going to take a lot longer to die. But just remember that if you see a cheeky Vanguard user trying to run at you from the corner of your eye, just toggle off the ability and sidestep out of there. And finally, you do want to Force Choke a single assault rushing with Vanguard, and I know this may sound silly, but if an assault is rushing with Vanguard, I would honestly be better safe than sorry with 900 health and a Force Choke on cooldown than him landing a cheeky hit on me point blank with you trying to slash him with your lightsaber and lowering your health down to 500 in one shot. You know, alternatively, you could just Saber throw him, but in case you do miss a Saber throw, you could just Force Choke him. Now, speaking generally, the biggest thing you need to remember is you don't ever want to Force Choke when there are people at all sorts of distances inside of a room. If you Force Choke an enemy, and there are enemies in that room that don't get affected, they're all just going to turn on you and focus you down while you are completely defenseless. In conclusion, Darth Vader is an amazingly fun hero to play in Battlefront 2 with some patience and practice. His star cards have a great amount of flexibility and allows players to tailor his playstyle to how they want to play. His abilities are all very useful and each contribute to Vader's success on the battlefront. While he can be very effective for those just messing around, Vader truly shines and becomes a legend when mastered by a player. That about wraps up episode 3 of my How to Dominate series in Battlefront 2. I really hope some of you guys found these tips and strategies useful, and I really hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'd love to hear some of your thoughts and feedback down in the comments below, and if this video helped you out, I would be forever grateful if you share this video with a friend. I'm going to be going over to the light side for the next episode of the How to Dominate series, so feel free to let me know which hero you'd like to see next, and the most upvoted comment is the character I'll do. And as always, guys, I'll see you in the next one. Catch you later.